Hello, and welcome back to the RHS Chelsea Flower Show. Now, we're halfway through the week now, and hopefully we've given you plenty of ideas for your own garden already.
And with more than 80% of the population living in city or suburban spaces, this evening we're putting urban living in the spotlight. I've designed lots of tiny little urban spaces, balconies, roof gardens, front gardens, back gardens, and they can just be as exciting as a large garden, no doubt about it.
I mean, I've lived in the country and loved doing so for the last 30 years, but before that I spent 10 years in London, gardening with the same passion, the same pleasure in a very small garden. And I do think that's more than possible, and I certainly know that at Chelsea, this year, you will find loads of ideas to maximise that experience.
Huge amount of inspiration. There's container gardens, balcony gardens. Yeah. There are different challenges. There's shade, there's privacy, there's dry areas, but it doesn't mean you can't create an incredible space.
No, there are challenges, but the entire team, not just Joe and I, are here to help you, guide you through all the challenges and delights of urban gardening.
This is what we have in store for you tonight at the Royal Horticultural Society's Chelsea Flower Show 2024, an event supported by the Newt in Somerset.
I will be catching up with the Interior Design Masters Judge and Keen Gardener, Michelle Ogundehin, about that design interface between gardens and the built environment.
And with our lives as busy as ever, everyone needs a place to escape. Rachel is sharing design advice to create a calming sanctuary. Plus, with it being reported another scorching summer is on the cards, Nick's got the planting solutions to help you cool your space.
It's interesting that our ideas about a garden, the way we look at them and talk about them, are based upon a rural idea. But most people live in cities, and that number is going to increase. So urban gardens are much closer to the reality. And at Chelsea, we're increasingly seeing examples of how we can create beautiful gardens that are environmentally sensitive and yet be in the heart of any city. This is the flood-resilient garden. Now, as the name describes, it refers to the increasing wet that we're getting in winter, but it's also allied to the increasing dry we're getting in summer. So too much water when we don't want it and not enough when we do. So a certain amount of this garden relates to water storage, but also the planting that adapts to having this increased wet. So by digging out, we have a pond at the base, permanently wet, with plants around it that need wet conditions. And as you rise up the banks, the planting changes. So an example is that higher up on the bank, we have a quince tree that needs better drainage, and then lower down a willow, an osier, sprouting shoots. So storing water, adapting your gardens, careful planting, we can make the most of what might seem to be fairly hostile conditions. This is Pulp Friction. It's created around a group in Nottingham that provides green spaces for people with learning or physical disabilities. And this allows them to develop social and practical skills that will lead to employment. Obviously practical things like a wheelchair ramp, low raised beds so you can reach them, but reusing materials, ingenuity, wonderful colour, glorious medlar, which I'm standing underneath, all of which are going to stimulate the mind. And one of the things I find fascinating about Chelsea is every year there are one or two plants that pop up all over the place. And this year it's this wonderful rich burgundy poppy. And altogether, this garden as it is sings. We've seen gardens that either have an environmental message, a social and sometimes even a political message. There's a lot of that here at Chelsea. And although this garden may seem to have the most obvious message of all inscribed on the wall in big letters, actually it's very simple. That a garden can be the perfect place to find peace. So it's a very small space, but it's very sophisticated. It's beautifully done. And it just shows that lesson, that in gardens as in life, that you don't necessarily need very much to have everything.
Now, there's one garden in the All About Plants category that has completely reimagined what you would consider your local park to look like. Planet Good Earth is designed by Beton Park and Urban Organic and has been built around this granite skate ramp. Now, don't worry, I won't be jumping on my skateboard. Those days are well over. The focus is very much on the plants that surround it. And joining me is Louise Page from the social enterprise Planet Good Earth.
Hey, Joe.
Louise, lovely to meet you.
And you.
I've been really excited about seeing this because
Yeah.
this is the first time I've been on it. But you're trying to engage skaters and kids and with nature and edibles
Yeah,
and combine
absolutely.
that all together in a really interesting way.
Yeah, it's for young people. We're aiming at the 15 to 25-year-olds, but it's for everybody. It's for families, it's for young people, old people, it's intergenerational. And the idea is it's all around supporting young people's mental health and well-being. So the physical well-being being board sports, any kind of wheeled sports, and mental health and well-being because you're immersed in nature. Kids can come and feel the earth, get involved in horticultural workshops. It's for skill sharing and for community engagement, youth empowerment.
It's applicable sort of everywhere though, isn't it? I mean, anywhere you've got a pocket park or a space, you could easily put a ramp in and you could make a lot of the planting edible, just some apple trees, some herbs, and get kids into where their food comes from, a little bit of gardening, a little bit of skating.
It's super educational. It's all about environmental education and just kind of having fun with it. The brief behind it all was all about the joy of playing, cultivating and growing together, so they've totally nailed it and we're really happy with it. Yeah, it's amazing.
The edibles, I mean, they look beautiful, and this is a very sort of small example.
Yeah.
On press day, you had some skateboarders here.
Oh yeah, dude, we had like literally the Ben Ramers Foundation came and skated the garden, all the Palace crew and
all the Palace crew.
They were like, honestly, they're pros. They're like the best.
I wish I'd seen that.
We're all friends and they did an amazing thing, and we even had Deborah Meaden skating the ramp, which was awesome.
Hang on, Deborah Meaden, what's she like?
She's so nice, man. Like she was.
No, I mean at skating.
Oh, skating. She was actually needed a little bit of help, but she was game for it, and it was really funny.
It's fun.
Yeah, she was awesome.
I think it's great what you're doing, honestly, and bringing it to Chelsea in this environment. You're breaking a few boundaries.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Congratulations. Well done.
Thanks. Amazing.
Now, time for tonight's Pick of the Pavilion, where every day one of the teams celebrates an exhibitor here at Chelsea. It's Frances's pick this evening, and she's shining a spotlight on micro-nurseries, who are often solo growers that grow from their own homes and are an essential part of any local community.
When you run a very small nursery, or even a solo operation, the logistics of getting to Chelsea, building a stand, preparing the plants, and then manning your stand for a week make the whole thing almost impossible. So this is a collaboration of lots of different small nurseries who have all clubbed together to help each other so that they can all be here and exhibit. And the great thing about having so many different nurseries in one space is that there are lots of plants to look at. One plant that's really caught my eye is this. This is Fuchsia procumbens. It's a species fuchsia and I have never seen it before. But here on the Swallowfield stand, which is mainly woodland plants, it's really unusual plants like that are so exciting to find. The great thing about micro-nurseries is they often have real specialisms. And this is the No Name Nursery, which specialises in tropical garden plants. And the overall effect is really different from the other smaller stands that make up this whole exhibition. Now, if you have a dark corner of the garden, it's tempting to put lovely deep green foliage in, but actually here, under the bench, the golden hack and the cloers really lift that darker space and they'll tolerate deep shade. But what I really love is things like the epimedium with their copper-edged leaves pick up on the woodwardia and the stems of the regerzia, which all echo the colour of that copper bench, and it ties the whole thing together really beautifully. Now this stand is Pelham Plants and it's been created by Paul Seaborn, who has coordinated this whole exhibit. So what is the idea behind all of this? Because it's a collaboration, isn't it?
Well, this is the Plant Fairs Roadshow stand. We've got 7 independent nurseries here. So we work as a team of volunteers almost, trying to create these events across the southeast.
And every nursery has a different specialism, doesn't it? So I guess you're all learning from each other as well.
Absolutely. There are times when, if we're in a rush at a plant fair and I help someone else unload, I'm taking plants off of a van that I barely recognise because that's their area of expertise. So we all bring something to the pot.
So if there was one piece of advice that you would want to share with people back in their own gardens, what would that be?
Well, I always like to plant for texture. So you could even try viewing your garden or your new planting with sunglasses on. Take the colours out, look at the textures and the shapes of foliage.
Well, thank you very much, Paul, and really good luck as this grows in the future.
Thank you.
Well, there's no question that micro-nurseries are really important and enrich communities. I think they're wonderful. And you certainly don't need a big space to let your imagination run wild either. This year's balcony and containers have some of the most innovative designs that rival any of the larger show gardens. And that includes a couple that Gardeners World viewers are familiar with. Mike and Julesy have transformed the central London balcony into a tropical paradise, and they've recreated some of that magic here on the showground. Won a gold medal, so congratulations for that. And I gather that you impressed the royal visitors too.
Yeah, that was, as the entire show has been, it was total whirlwind. It was such an honour and a privilege to meet.
And what did they say when they saw the garden?
They love the garden as a whole, and the King asked us where we got our tree ferns because they're some of the largest in the UK, I believe.
Well, certainly, I mean, that idea of putting really big tree ferns and plants on a relatively small space, I mean, not even relatively, a small balcony. I mean, is this a deliberate attempt to encourage people to show it can happen, or is it just what you wanted to do personally?
Well, the reason we've done it is because people assume that if you have a 2 square metre or a 10 square metre balcony, that's where your planting stops. But that's not what nature does when a tree gets to a river or in a mangrove forest. It hovers over the sea. So we've always seen it that there's this whole extra airspace around your balcony. And we've pushed so many large, dramatic plants to the side to make your balcony feel, you know, almost like twice the size.
Right. I believe this is your first garden at Chelsea, is it?
It is, yes.
So technically, was that difficult?
Well, we had a huge amount of help from the RHS team. We've had mentorship from Paul Hervey-Brooks and Claire Green at RHS and Andrew at Big Fish Landscapes, and they've been absolutely wonderful helping us through, because it is such an operation, and to find your way in and weave in is a challenge.
I mean, you say that, but you've managed to pull it together. Do you think this is going to be something that's applicable to people all over the country? Because what you're looking at are some plants, certainly in my garden, that will need a lot of protection in winter.
I think it is applicable to people all over the country because there's a number of the plants. The majority of the plants can be used outside London. Some of the plants, like the Cyathea cooperi, will not be able to survive outside London.
You can scale this and adapt it for that. Well done. Yeah. Enjoy your triumph. Enjoy it all, and congratulations.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, there's no question that this is going to have people just standing back in awe at its beauty, but there are real lessons to be learned from this, particularly with the way that climate is changing. We've all had to cope with a very wet winter, and it's said that we may well be having to cope with a very hot, dry summer ahead of us. And Nick has been going around the showground looking at different ways that we can keep our gardens and all our outdoor spaces nice and cool.
Due to our changing climate, urban centres are hotter than ever. Typically, temperatures are up by 1 to 3 degrees during the day and up to 5 degrees at night. And this is as a result of buildings absorbing heat, lack of trees, lack of wind movement, and lots of traffic. But there are certain things that you can do to make a real difference. One of the simplest ways to reduce the temperature in your garden is to introduce a tree. It doesn't have to be anything huge. It can be 5 or 6 metres and it will make a dramatic effect on the air temperature. So as the rays of the sun hit the leaves, they prevent some of that radiation and heat getting down to the ground, and then the evapotranspiration of the leaves will also cool the air. Something like this Colereteria or golden rain tree is the perfect solution. Once mature, is literally the equivalent of having 2 air conditioning units in your garden. Now, there's another idea over here, and as I move towards it, I can immediately feel the cool air coming away from the water. There's no surprise there, but it's doing it in 2 interesting ways. As the water drops, it's literally physically cooling the air around it, but there's also evaporation happening, so it's cooling in 2 directions. The ideal solution, if you've got the space, is to site a water feature underneath the shade of small trees. And then you've got the double whammy of 2 forms of air conditioning that will keep your garden really cool. In a small space of this nature, one of your best options is to go up with your planting, and it can have a real effect on the climate on the balcony and in the house as well. Now, an ideal candidate would be star jasmine or Trachelospermum jasminoides. It's an evergreen climber, has these beautiful white flowers through summer, and it's incredibly scented. The added bonus of growing a climber or any substantial plant on a balcony is that they're all evapotranspirating. In other words, they're going to broadly cool the ambient temperature in an elevated environment like this. So if you can get the right combination of running water, substantial trees, climbers and heavy planting, you can seriously drop the temperature of your urban garden.
Some really interesting tips there from Nick that we'll be delving into further throughout the show. Now, across the week, we're sharing the main trends we're seeing at the show this year in our Chelsea lookbook. On Monday, we revealed that purple is the must-have colour in your borders. Yesterday was all about how designers are enhancing their spaces using woodcraft. Today, Arit's sharing how to add a splash of glamour using water.
Every garden always benefits from having water within it. And this year at Chelsea, designers have really elevated their space by going to town on their water features. This is the RHS Repurposed Garden, a feature garden. And what I really love about it is this star water fountain. And why do I recognise it? Because it's from Tom Massey's 2018 garden. How great to see it here again. It's an Islamic-inspired design, like you'd find cooling a courtyard in Morocco or Andalusia. And it's not just us who benefit from a water feature in the home. Bees and other pollinators need to drink when they're busy. And we can provide water for pollinators by having a shallow margin of a pond or a shallow dish as a safe source of water for them. But don't forget to leave them a way out by adding stones to the water. Here on the ecotherapy garden, water is central to the design. This elevates this whole space because water has been used as a soundscape to relax and make me feel calm. So whether it's coming out of the fountain, running down here through the reel, the whole sense of water around me brings a sense of well-being. This whole garden was imagined as a small city centre courtyard designed to really help create a connection with nature. And these biophilic properties, getting close to other forms of nature, should improve circulation, boost our immune system and improve mental health. I can close my eyes and really chill out. And if it was a little bit warmer, I might even find myself in that plunge pool. Mr. Ishihara has been coming to Chelsea for the past 20 years and he's always had water featured in his gardens, but this year he has surpassed himself with this magnificent water feature. I love this waterfall, it brings so much drama into this space. And this is designed as a front garden. The water here adds such a strong sense of movement to this place. Where the water tumbles down in several places, you get these subtly different sounds. And with the layered plants, these vibrant acers and green walls, it all leads the eye back to the waterfall. It feels so naturalistic in style. So you might be thinking, how could I do that in my garden? Well, you need to take inspiration from what makes you feel joyful, where you can have sound and relaxation. Make water a real feature in your space.
The creativity on show at Chelsea is second to none. And joining us now is the president of the RHS, Keith Reed. Keith, hello.
Hello.
I'm sure you're asked this many times, but so far, how is this year's show going for you?
I think it's going very well. I think it's a marvellous show. We have lots of people enjoying it, and we're bringing gardening to many, many people.
Well, that's good. I mean, one thing that people do say is, this is the best show ever, this is the best show. Is it changing in any way? Is the show developing, or are you just hitting marks that you hope you're going to hit?
And you're right, it is the best show ever. So thanks for saying that. Because each year we try and work out how do we improve. And we get feedback from all our visitors, we get feedback from the horticulturists, from the garden designers. And what we try and do is, we're a charity trying to take gardening to everyone. And to do that, you have to appeal to everyone. So different people enjoy different things. So we try and put a palette out there which whets everyone's appetite.
And do you deliberately say, well, we're going to have a bit of that and a bit of that, and that will appeal to some people, or do you just hope it comes in?
The great thing about Chelsea, it is a magnet. I mean, this is the best of the best. So we attract garden designers and sponsors and charities from around the world. And in that, I do think we have a real joy of choosing great.
There really is good variety here. No gardens look the same. For us, there's great content, I've got to say. But outside of Chelsea, the RHS are also moving into more urban areas, smaller shows, doing some quite interesting things in that space. Tell us about that.
Well, yes, because as a charity for promoting gardening, we want to get to everyone. And of course, we get lots of people here. But we have our own gardens, we have shows around the country, but what we're thinking, how do we get to literally everyone in the UK? And one way of doing it is to go into the towns. And so we've recently had a show in Manchester, inside a sort of semi-derelict warehouse where it's more sort of raves and festivals.
More groovy.
So, yes, but it felt very, very different. We had a younger crowd, a more urban crowd, a more diverse crowd, and it felt really, really fun. And it's inspired us. We're going to do more of this.
Well, we're looking forward to see that. Now, here at Chelsea, you have the privilege and the honour of choosing one exhibit to win the President's Award. And let's take a look at who had the honour of winning it this year.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Well done you. Well done you.
So what was it about that made you single that out in particular?
Well, I think first and foremost, it is wonderful to look at. It's a piece of creative excellence, creative design. Again, horticultural excellence. We have orchids, we have lilies. It's beautifully done, and it really captures Grenada. And they've been here for many, many years. This year's a very special year for them, but it wasn't for that reason. It was chosen purely for the brilliance.
Thank you, and thank you very much for talking to us.
Now, still to come this evening at the RHS Chelsea Flower Show 2024, an event supported by the Newt in Somerset.
The Interior Design Masters judge Michelle Ogundehin casts her expert eye on the showground and shares how plants can transform your home into an indoor retreat.
And Rachel's over in the Sanctuary Gardens with advice on creating a calming hideaway so you can escape the city hustle and bustle this summer.
One of the most popular introductions at RHS Chelsea has been the Plant of the Year competition. And last night we revealed that Prunus Starlight is this year's winner. But away from the competition, there are dozens of new, exciting and diverse plants being launched this year.
And over the next 2 nights, we'll be sharing some varieties that could become firm favourites in your borders and containers. Earlier, Monty and I went to explore what's on offer. Get your pen and your notebooks ready. If you want to attract pollinators into your garden, you have to have some agastache. Then they tend to come in blues and purples, but there's this new one, Beelicious Pink. Now, it's just coming into flower, and it is going to flower all summer long. They just keep coming and coming right until the first frosts, and then don't cut it back. Just leave it standing. It'll add a lot of form to the winter border, and it will also clump up nicely too. Beelicious Pink, remember that name.
does look great, Joe. But have a look at this. This is a new Trachelospermum. It's called Star of Milano. Now, we're used to Trachelospermum being this glorious, great sort of pillar of white, intensely fragrant flowers. This has flowers that are a subtle peachy pink, and they're carried on variegated foliage, and the variegation just chimes in with the colour of the petals. Its real distinction, other than the colour, is that it's not too big, because Trachelospermum can really romp away. This will only grow to a maximum 3 metres, and probably rather less. It does like some sunshine, but can take a little bit of shade, will grow in most soils as long as it's reasonably drained. So this makes it suitable for almost any garden. I do love a banana, particularly if they've got a sort of chocolatey red colour, but they can be rather tender. This is a new one, Musa sikimensis ever red, which claims to be more robust than most. It's as hardy as Musa bajou, which means that it will take temperatures down to frost. It also claims to be fairly wind resistant, so the leaves don't shred. If you're growing it in the garden, you'll have to wrap it in fleece in winter, but if it's in a pot, just bring it into a frost-free place. And like all bananas, it's hungry and it's thirsty. So give it plenty of water, plenty of food, and as long as the drainage is good, this will grow to about 4 metres tall in 10 years.
Well, that's a lovely leafy number, Monty. But if you want flowers, delicate flowers, look at this. Tulbagia fancy pants. This is absolutely beautiful. It was selected from about 200 seedlings, let flower, and this one just sang out. It's a South African plant, so it likes really good drainage. I would grow it in a pot, and that will ensure drainage, but you can grow it in a border and mulch it over through the winter. It can cope with about -10. And the grassy foliage will just expand quite quickly into a nice clump. Loads of flowers all summer long. And what is lovely about it is because it's pollinated by moths, it pumps out a lovely fragrance in the evening, a really musky scent. It's a beautiful plant. Now, we'll be looking at some other new plants later on this week.
Whether you've got a small garden, a patio, or even a balcony, adding a tree to a tiny space might feel near on impossible. But I'm telling you, it's not. Trees come in all shapes and sizes, and adding one to even the tiniest space is a great investment. This is the Burma Skincare Garden, and there are some cracking trees on here. But before we get all overexcited and we rush down to the garden centre, we just got to give it a little bit of thought. So the first thing you need to do is understand your soil. You want to know whether it's slightly too acid or the pH is more to lime. That's really easy. Garden centre, a simple soil test. Then get your hands in it. Is it clay? Is it heavy? Is it well drained? Even after that, stand in the garden, even put a cane in, work out the height that you want. But what we're going to do here is talk about a couple of handy species. The first ones I want to show you is Cornus controversa and Cornus capita. They're a bit of a go-to for me, partly because they'll grow in different soil conditions. But what I love about them is not just the size, they'll provide good flower, even a little fruit on some of them, good bark, can be pruned and controlled, fantastic autumn colour. Shall I go on? I'm selling it to you. Hey, look at that. It's Platanus cross Hispanica Melba, known as the plane tree. But here they're calling them swing tree. That is about 15 years old, all right? And it's been trained to curve and work its way up and create a lovely umbrella. It doesn't sit in the terrace, it sits outside and comes over. And yes, that would cost you, a lot of money. But that shows you trees can be manipulated, they can be shaped, they can be pruned. It's just doing a little bit of research. You could do that yourself. I'm in a no adults allowed garden, so I apologise for being in here, but I needed to show you this tree, all right? It's called Chinonanthus, which is known as a Chinese fringe tree. And it's absolutely stunning. Look at that flower. It'll grow probably till about 3-4 metres. Deal with -10, so not too far north. The bark is incredible. That flower will stay for about a month. I think that could well be a tree for the future.
Now, I do think that growing small trees in any garden automatically makes it more interesting and beautiful, but choosing the right tree can be a bit tricky. And I love Acers. I've tried growing them often, but not with great success. So it's just as well I'm with an Acer expert. Miles Haywood here has got a display. It's an educational display, I think, Miles.
Yes, so it's classed as a Lindley display.
Right. And it's focused on Acer palmatum only, is it?
Yes, I've been very niche and just Acer palmatum because there's almost everyone seems to have one in their garden. Everyone knows it as a tree, and there's so many different varieties as well.
I've just said I have problems growing them. What's the best way to raise them? I mean, I see you've got seedlings here, you've got small plants, you've got big plants. Tell me exactly how they should be raised in any way.
So the most fun way to raise them, I would say, would be from seed.
Okay.
Because you never know what you're going to get. Okay. And the idea is that the seedlings don't come true.
So you've got a batch of seedlings here. How many different trees are those from?
That's just from one tree.
And they're all different?
All different, and they're from a purple tree, and there's actually hardly any purple foliage in there at all.
So they're hybridised between the cultivars?
Hybridised, and this is how we've ended up with so many different cultivars.
Okay, so if you want a true offspring, I presume you take a cutting, do you?
Cuttings don't tend to work too well.
Oh.
It's possible, but they tend to have weaker root systems, and they don't tend to establish very well.
So how do you do it if you want to get a true result?
So the traditional method, as done in Japan for a very long time, would be by grafting. So that's effectively taking a piece of the mother plant and grafting it onto Acer palmatum.
And how quickly? I mean, okay, you've grafted that. How old is that?
That's 1 year old. It's last summer.
And if you wanted a plant, as we've seen in a small garden, how quickly would that establish?
That's probably within 4 or 5 years. I would expect that to be sort of up to about chest height on me.
I mean, you've got a variety of plants here. These are grown, they've all been grafted.
They're all grafted, all
now,
the cultivars.
Briefly, I've got heavy clay soil. It's very wet.
Yeah.
Is that going to be a problem if other people have got that too?
It's not ideal. I would suggest planting higher than you would do normally to ensure that at least at the very base of the trunk doesn't get too wet. Any excess moisture can drain away.
So good drainage, but plenty of moisture.
But plenty of moisture, particularly with our hotter, drier summers.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
RHS Chelsea shows horticulture at its best and the power it can have on our well-being too. Now, one houseplant studio this year that exemplifies that ethos is the Glass House. They give women who are or recently have been in prison a second chance by training them in horticulture. The women who take part in the project have had their lives transformed. We joined them on their road to making their debut at Chelsea.
Welcome to the Glass House. This is the shop, and we have houseplants for absolutely any home, and we've been here just over 3 years. I will show you a few of my favorites. This is the trailing jade. It's a lovely trailing plant, very popular. You can propagate it and give it to friends. This is a ripsalis, a really beautiful plant that looks like seaweed. I love the deep green of that one. This is a Monstera obliqua. It has really interesting holes in its leaves, a bit different from the standard Monstera. My name is Callie Hammerton-Stove. I'm one of the founders of the Glass House, along with Melissa Murdoch. There's something really unique about the houseplants we have here. They're grown by women who are in prison or recently released.
My name is Nettie, and I've been with the Glass House project now 3.5 years. Thank God that there are people who believe in us. If I would not have had this love, care, trust, I would not be sitting here today.
This project is based on the premise that people deserve a second chance. Plants are the perfect thing to represent that, because often we have plants that aren't treated exactly right or just need a bit of extra care, and watching them flourish, you can really see how a little bit of attention can really make a difference in someone's life.
So this is a prayer plant. In the evening, the leaves are wrapping each other around, and when they wake up in the morning, they open up again, and there you have your prayer plant.
The Glass House started in 2020 when one of our founders had been to visit a prison and learned about some of the issues that women were addressing when they were released. Those included lack of employment and lack of housing, and those are really key factors in people reoffending. What we wanted to do was really look at those issues, and as she was looking around the prison, she noticed that there were some disused greenhouses. We built a business plan around the idea of bringing plants into those disused greenhouses and really allowing the women to learn and grow and work whilst they were in prison. They get a qualification and they have experience working and maintaining plants in the corporate environment as well as in the retail environment.
Very nice.
We usually have anywhere between 6 and 10 going through the program at any one time, and we've had nearly 30 go through since the beginning of the project.
So this is a blue star fern. One slightly particular thing about this plant is that they don't like their leaves being touched. My name is Jess, and I've been with the Glasshouse project for just over a year. Even after my first day, I could feel a difference in myself. It was very positive on my mental well-being. I was with the Glasshouse for a year whilst I've been in prison. I was released 10 weeks ago now, and they've been kind enough to take me on full-time. And if I wasn't working with the Glasshouse project, I don't really know what I'd have in my life. Having the Glasshouse has meant I can actually see a future now.
We really believe we're onto something with preparing women for release and ensuring they have everything they need to be successful in their new life. We have a 0% reoffending rate, which is incredible. So women really are benefiting from having this preparation time and this training right before they're released. This is where we grow and nurture our plants. We moved out of the prison glasshouses because we grew out of them, but the plants are really thriving here. The women are thriving here. It's a really beautiful and special place.
You want to make sure that they're as clean as possible, and so that it really helps with the photosynthesis, because that's what's going to help the plant thrive indoors. I'm Emily. I'm the horticulturalist at the Glasshouse, and it's my job to kind of train up the women that come through our doors.
Without this project, I wouldn't have anything to look forward to. I can't wait to get up out of bed and just get out and get stuck into work again. My favourite is this asparagus fern. These like quite muggy conditions, you know, in a bathroom. They hold a lot of moisture.
We see huge transformations in the women that work with us. So the first week or the first few days they come in, they're quite withdrawn, quite shy. Minimal eye contact is quite a common thing. And then after, you know, a few weeks, a few months, you just see this person blossom, and it's absolutely beautiful.
I think that the project is important because by the nature of the fact that we are in prison, either something or our whole lives are broken. And I think that the project allows that to heal. And just because we're broken, it doesn't mean that we can't have a future, and it doesn't mean that that future can't be beautiful.
We are so excited because the plants that are grown here by women in prison or recently released are going to be part of Chelsea Flower Show. The design is based on the glass houses that we first worked at in prison. We'll have some of the plants the women started with, but as you walk through the glass house, it will become more and more full and more lush, and it will really illustrate the growth that we bring for women and that the plants enjoy as well, obviously. When we get to Chelsea and I see all our plants there in that environment and see all the women there that are going to be telling our story and sharing their experience, I will just feel like we have achieved something really remarkable.
Callie, what an incredible initiative. I mean, it's fantastic. And it's so successful as well. It was 0 reoffending, so it really works.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the power of horticulture and the power of really building up skills and building up confidence in these women has really showed results.
And the social side of working around plants?
Oh my goodness. I think, you know, a lot of women that come to work for us have never ever grown anything or nurtured anything, and they don't really maybe apply because they're interested in the plants. They apply for other reasons. But once they get their hands on plants and in soil, you can see them change. You can see how much they get from nurturing and seeing these plants grow and bringing them on.
It's fantastic. And here we are in your green, and you've got the greenhouse because on a day like this, it's the perfect place to hide out of the rain. And it looks gorgeous. Plant-wise, where does it start? What's the easiest one that they grow?
Well, right behind you is our Chinese money plant. Want me to grab one?
Yeah, go for it.
So this is our Pelea pepermitas, and this is the first plant we ever started with, that we started with in the glass houses at HMP Sutton Park. And the women learn about this plant quite quickly. You can see it's really easy to propagate. You can kind of just dig a little new plant out of there and start a new one, and they love it. But so it's the first one they grow, it's the first one they learn to propagate, and they send it out to all their family.
Well, it's lucky, isn't it? You're not meant to buy them, you're meant to pass them on, the money plant. And that's where the luck is. It's a lovely one to start. Yeah. And together, you got a gold medal.
We got a gold medal.
Your first time here. How does that feel? And how do they feel?
Oh my gosh, I think they're in shock, as I am. We never would have expected to have that at all. It's just the icing on the cake for them. There have been so many tears and jumping up and down, and I think we're still taking it in, to be honest. I can't believe we can say that now. Well, I can't believe it.
It's a great exhibit, but it's a brilliant recognition of what you're doing as well. So, congratulations. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rain.
We will. Thank you so much.
The houseplant studios at Chelsea this year are really showing how to make the most of the plants that we use inside our homes through design. And that must be music to the ears of Interior Design Masters Judge, Michelle Ogundehin. Well, Michelle, welcome to Chelsea. In fact, we had a chat a couple of years ago about your garden in Brighton. How's it doing?
It's doing really well. It lit the fuse. It showed me what was possible, but I've moved on now. I've got a new dream project.
Tell me about that.
I want to develop a homestead, so a real mix, very loose planting, vegetables and flowers, but I'm practicing at the moment. I've adopted a garden in Kent and I'm learning. I'm trying it on for size because we all know that taking on a garden is basically like having another child, isn't it?
It certainly is, and a child that doesn't do as it's told. Certainly.
Well, yeah.
I'm really interested talking to you in this relationship between your background as an architect, as a magazine editor, as someone who is really immersed in the world of design, which is fundamentally about fixing things, about working out the perfect moment, whereas gardens change all the time. How do you relate those two things?
Well, I think it's always about telling stories, though. We're using the same palette of materials and colours and textures and form and sculpture. So I think there's a lot of similarity. But the thing where I think gardens do really well is that you really play with the sensorial. So what things sound like and what they feel like and the smell as well, which sometimes gets lost in interiors because we focus on what it looks like.
I sometimes feel that with interior designers and architects, gardens are too unruly for them.
But it's that marriage, that's the bit, that's actually the space that I'm the most interested in, because you're right, as an architect, I love the hardscaping, changing of levels, materials, reclamation, all that stuff. But then when I add in all the soft, that's what actually brings the magic together. That's what creates the mood. And even in fixed architecture, that's the thing I'm always trying to tell people. It's where the hard meets the soft. That's where you make the magic.
I mean, I guess in people's homes, that relationship between the fixed and the hard and the loose, as you say, where the magic comes, it's very hard to define. But in what way do you steer people towards it? I mean, how can you actively instruct people about that?
Oh, gosh, that is a hard question. Well, I would be one of the first people to say there are no rules, which maybe you have too. And it's about feeling. So it's just going with your gut. So if you want the purple polka dots and the foxgloves and the greenery and the glitter, do it, because if that's what makes you feel happy, joyful and calm, that's what we have to go for. So it's throw out what you think you should do and go with what makes you just feel the joy.
And in terms, I mean, obviously horticulture is wrapped around an instruction and rules. Are you finding as you are doing more gardening that you're having to learn a lot, or is it just working intuitively on that front?
Oh gosh, no, this is where I have huge growth for learning. I have gone from something that looks like, oh, this is so beautiful, to earth.
Yes.
Because I haven't quite got that seasonal planting, and when something sort of droops and goes and I'm admiring its beauty, but then there's nothing after it. So I have a huge amount to learn, because I do tend to choose by the shapes of the leaves and the colours and the textures. So I've got that. The next bit of growth is to understand the seasonality and what will carry on and what will stay.
Well, certainly walking around here will instruct you that, and thank you so much for talking to us.
Yeah.
And good luck with your homestead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed.
The beauty of designing your own garden or balcony is that you can stamp your personality all over it. And for me, my garden is a place to garden, experiment, live, and generally connect with nature. But across the rest of the week, we'll be in the sanctuary gardens to share the planting choices designers have used to evoke different atmospheres and moods, which you can replicate at home. And today, Rachel's showing you how to create a place that's calm.
Sometimes when you arrive at a garden, you immediately become calmer. And this, the Bridgerton Garden, designed by Holly Johnston, is a perfect example. She's just paved the way into the garden beyond with this beautiful planting, very lush, very green, but with highlights of cream through the foxgloves and the roses, and also echoed in the stems of the silver birches. And then as you turn to go through into the garden, you see the wisteria. A little bit more colour, a little bit of pale mauve, still very gentle. And you go through the moon gate and leave your troubles behind. Once you come through into the main part of the garden, you are immediately aware of the symmetry. Everything is balanced, it feels right, very comfortable to be in. And then the symmetry is taken through into the trees as well, these dwarf elms. And there are also 4 on each corner of these lovely evergreen yews that have been topiarised. And actually topiary is just wonderful to look at. It's somewhere for the eye to settle. And as a gardener, I love doing topiary. I find that very contemplative, very soothing. Walking around the back of the garden, you immediately feel sort of cocooned by greenery, this wonderful lush green of the hedge and all this planting, the hostas and so on below. And green has been shown to lower the heart rate and blood pressure, so it's very good for you. It is a calming colour. And following on from all the lush greenery, we've now got the beautiful flower colour, but lovely soft blues and mauves and purples. And there's lots of vertical accents, so things like the foxgloves, the delphinium masterpiece, we've got Iris sibirica, all just standing proud. And then lots of lovely little treasures here, the geranium samobor, the campanulas. It's all very soft, very pretty. And the planting is sort of just dotted through informally, so it gives you a lovely atmosphere. The whole thing is just wonderfully calming. I don't really want to leave.
I certainly wouldn't call myself a florist of any kind, but I love picking flowers to bring indoors, and I plunk them in a vase and they can look magnificent either dramatically on the dining room table or a little posy by the bedside. But the problem for most gardeners is that you rob the garden to feed the house, and getting both can be a little bit of a balance. But if you want inspiration for how you can really get your flowers to look as good as possible, then come to Chelsea, because there's no better place than here, because of course it attracts the best florists from around the world, as the best of every other kind of horticulture. Now with me, Nicola, you have made this beautiful arrangement. You've won a gold medal, so congratulations on that. What would you say are the 3 most important elements when you grow and prepare your plants to make an arrangement?
Okay, so number 1 is to choose the right kinds of flowers, so make sure you're choosing flowers that are suitable for cutting.
So how do you know that?
You'd have to maybe do some research. There are quite a few good books out on the market, but you can have a look at this display and that will get you started. So foxgloves, silictrums, poppies, ranunculus, all good. Second is to condition them properly. It's really important. So once you pick the flowers, make sure you're stripping the leaves off of the stems and you're putting them in deep in cold water for at least overnight.
Okay, so people don't tend to do that, do they?
So that's really important. It'll give you a couple of extra days of vase life.
Okay, and what's the final thing?
Third one is to look after them properly, so make sure they're well fed, well watered. Top quality plants will give you a longer vase life.
So good quality plants, treat them well, and hey presto, you end up with something looking like this, with a touch of your brilliant magic. Well done. Congratulations on the gold. Now, as well as gold medals being given this year, there is also the prize of Florist of the Year for the best floristry display, and Lara, you have won that with this incredible display. These sort of burning ranunculus and these rich oranges and yellows, which of course represents fire, I believe.
Correct, that's correct. So I've used the yellows, the oranges and the reds to represent fire, as the theme this year for Chelsea Florist was colour.
And did you expect to win? Did you think it was going to happen?
I was a bit overwhelmed and shocked that I won, because there's a lot of other people that in the competition have got a lot more experience than I have. But it's take a while to sink in, I think.
Well, it looks wonderful. And clearly there's real artistry in there, real skill. And I can tell, looking around, you're attracting thousands of people who not only will enjoy it, but they'll be inspired by it. So well done, and many, many congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking.
Thank you.
Congratulations to Lara. Well, there are some incredible floristry exhibits this year, Monty. You like a bit of Ikebana, I've heard.
Moving on. Actually, the thing I really liked, and they're all amazing, but the ones that appealed to me most were where these were homegrown flowers, often by the florists themselves, and the ingenuity needed to keep them looking as good all week as they have ready for judging.
Yeah, I think they sometimes refresh during the week if they're really looking a bit faded.
They're very complicated, so you can't just bung another flower in.
No, that's true. That's true. Well, before we answer some of your questions, earlier this evening we gave you a guide to all the show gardens in the running for this year's BBC RHS People's Choice Award. If you missed them, you can catch up on iPlayer or go to the website bbc.co.uk/Chelsea for the full list, where you'll also find the terms and conditions and the privacy notice.
And you have until 7 o'clock tomorrow evening, Thursday the 23rd of May, to vote, with the winner being announced on Friday night on BBC One. So you haven't got long, and just remember that please don't try and vote if you're watching on demand after the vote is closed.
Right, it's time for a few questions from you at home.
Let's have the proper fanfare.
Are you going to... I'll allow you this once. No. I don't think you got the map.
Yeah.
Press it again. Just once more. There. It wasn't great,
You do it next time.
I'm going to do it next time. Yeah, you're not great at that. It is quite tricky. Fiona Chan asks, hi guys, I'm a novice but would like to grow some shady plants in a small patch. Any tips, please?
Well, what's interesting about that is the assumption is that it's a problem. It's not a problem at all. Lots of plants like shade, and some of them are plants you might not think, like clematis, roses, honeysuckle.
Many viburnums.
Yes.
Obviously, there's ferns and hostas.
Hydrangeas. What I would say is if it's dry shade, it's much more limited than if it's damper shade.
Yeah, it's a bit trickier. Epimediums will grow in quite dry shade.
Woodland plants, as you say.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Michelle Woodhouse asks, after having a really wet winter, my lawn has suffered. It's quite a common problem, this, and is very patchy in some places due to waterlogging. Is it best to returf or reseed?
Well, we've got to be quick.
Well, it's the underlying issue.
Get the drainage right. Get it drained.
Yeah.
If it's a small area, I would scatter seed. If it's a larger area, I'd use turf.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. But you've got to deal with the drainage first, otherwise the same thing's going to happen every time it gets really wet.
Well, we ran out of time on there, but we do love to hear from you. And if you have a question, use the hashtag AskMontyandJoe. And that's it from us for tonight. Don't forget to join Nikki and Angelica tomorrow afternoon on BBC One at 3:45.
And we'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. here on BBC Two, when we'll be helping you get ready for an action-packed summer.
So good night.
Good night.
Can't have a future, and it doesn't mean that that future can't be beautiful.
We are so excited because the plants that are grown here by women in prison or recently released are going to be part of Chelsea Flower Show. The design is based on the glass houses that we first worked at in prison. We'll have some of the plants the women started with, but as you walk through the glass house, it will become more and more full and more lush, and it will really illustrate the growth that we bring for women and that the plants enjoy as well, obviously. When we get to Chelsea and I see all our plants there in that environment and see all the women there that are going to be telling our story and sharing their experience, I will just feel like we have achieved something really remarkable.
Callie, what an incredible initiative. I mean, it's fantastic. And it's so successful as well, with zero reoffending, so it really works.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the power of horticulture and the power of really building up skills and building up confidence in these women has really showed results.
And the social side of working around plants?
Oh my goodness. I think, you know, a lot of women that come to work for us have never ever grown anything or nurtured anything, and they don't really maybe apply because they're interested in the plants. They apply for other reasons. But once they get their hands on plants and in soil, you can see them change. You can see how much they get from nurturing and seeing these plants grow and bringing them on.
It's fantastic. And here we are in your green, and you've got the greenhouse because on a day like this, it's the perfect place to hide out of the rain. And it looks gorgeous. Plant-wise, where does it start? What's the easiest one that they grow?
Well, right behind you is our Chinese money plant. Do you want me to grab one?
Yeah, go for it.
So this is our Pelea pepermidas, and this is the first plant we ever started with, that we started with in the glass houses at HMP Sutton Park. And the women learn about this plant quite quickly. You can see it's really easy to propagate. You can kind of just dig a little new plant out of there and start a new one, and they love it. But so it's the first one they grow, it's the first one they learn to propagate, and they send it out to all their family.
Well, it's lucky, isn't it? You're not meant to buy them, you're meant to pass them on, the money plant, and that's where the luck is. It's a lovely one to start. Yeah. And together, you got a gold medal.
We got a gold medal.
Your first time here. How does that feel, and how do they feel?
Oh my gosh, I think they're in shock, as I am. We never would have expected to have that at all. It's just the icing on the cake for them. There have been so many tears and jumping up and down, and I think we're still taking it in, to be honest. I can't believe we can say that now. Well, I can't believe it.
It's a great exhibit, but it's a brilliant recognition of what you're doing as well. So, congratulations. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rain.
We will. Thank you so much.
The houseplant studios at Chelsea this year are really showing how to make the most of the plants that we use inside our homes through design. And that must be music to the ears of Interior Design Masters Judge Michelle Ogundehin. Well, Michelle, welcome to Chelsea. In fact, we had a chat a couple of years ago about your garden in Brighton. How's it doing?
It's doing really well. It lit the fuse. It showed me what was possible, but I've moved on now. I've got a new dream project.
Tell me about that.
I want to develop a homestead. before. So it's throw out what you think you should do and go with what makes you just feel the joy.
And in terms, I mean, obviously horticulture is wrapped around an instruction and rules. Are you finding as you are doing more gardening that you're having to learn a lot, or is it just working intuitively on that front?
Oh gosh, no, this is where I have huge growth for learning. I have gone from something that looks like, oh, this is so beautiful, to earth.
Yes.
Because I haven't quite got that seasonal planting,
Yeah.
and when something sort of droops and goes and I'm admiring its beauty, but then there's nothing after it. So I have a huge amount to learn, because I do tend to choose by the shapes of the leaves and the
Yes.
colours and the textures. So I've got that. The next bit of growth is to understand the seasonality and what will carry on and what will stay.
Well, certainly walking around here will instruct you that, and thank you so much for talking to us.
Yeah.
And good luck with your homestead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very much indeed.
The beauty of designing your own garden or balcony is that you can stamp your personality all over it. And for me, my garden is a place to garden, experiment, live, and generally connect with nature. But across the rest of the week, we'll be in the sanctuary gardens to share the planting choices designers have used to evoke different atmospheres and moods which you can replicate at home. And today, Rachel's showing you how to create a place that's calm.
Sometimes when you arrive at a garden, you immediately become calmer. And this, the Bridgerton Garden, designed by Holly Johnston, is a perfect example. She's just paved the way into the garden beyond with this beautiful planting, very lush, very green, but with highlights of cream through the foxgloves and the roses, and also echoed in the stems of the silver birches. And then as you turn to go through into the garden, you see the wisteria, a little bit more colour, a little bit of pale mauve, still very gentle, and you go through the moon gate and leave your troubles behind. Once you come through into the main part of the garden, you are immediately aware of the symmetry. Everything is balanced, it feels right, very comfortable to be in. And then the symmetry is taken through into the trees as well, these dwarf elms. And there are also 4 on each corner of these lovely evergreen yews that have been topiarised. And actually topiary is just wonderful to look at. It's somewhere for the eye to settle. And as a gardener, I love doing topiary. I find that very contemplative, very soothing. Walking around the back of the garden, you immediately feel sort of cocooned by greenery, this wonderful lush green of the hedge and all this planting, the hostas and so on below. And green has been shown to lower the heart rate and blood pressure, so it's very good for you. It is a calming colour. And following on from all the lush greenery, we've now got the beautiful flower colour.